What is up, guys? It's your boy DFS Jimmy. I am back this week, and it is a major week. U.S. Open, Pebble Beach Golf Links 2019. Big things for major season. A lot of major storylines coming back into Pebble, and currently, at recording time of this video, Rory McIlroy is putting on an absolute stripe show for Sunday, and Graham McDowell looks to have locked up a return to Portrush in the Open Championship coming up. So big things happening at the Canadian Open, really setting the stage for an awesome major week here at Pebble Beach. U.S. Open has not been here at this venue since 2010. Graham McDowell, who I just mentioned, was the eventual victor at that time. Even or 1 under, I believe, was a winning score. Really tight, really tough golf course. Previous to that, we saw Tiger Woods absolutely destroy the field. 18-shot margin of victory, I think, in 2000 was the time before that we have seen Pebble Beach. So a lot of big things happening for us this weekend. A lot of storylines to tie into. So without any further ado, we will get into the things that we usually get into. We will go over the scorecard. We will look at how the course is playing, and then we will take a look at a little bit of an extended course history model and a very important DraftKings points average in the last 5 U.S. Opens. So a lot of things to cover here this week. Before I go any further, if you are not already a FanShare Pro member, look at the tag right below my face here. Use code USA for 50% off of a FanShare Pro membership this week. Really big promotion, aggressive promotion from Andrew and the boys over at FanShare for you this week. Make sure you get over to fansharesports.com. Check that out. Now, also, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It helps me out. It helps FanShare out. It's all about the likes, folks. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe so you get updated for all the content that FanShare puts out on YouTube. So once again, use promo code USA for 50% off of your FanShare Pro membership. Big things happening over at FanShare. This is going to be the biggest promotion of the year for those guys in the golf content. So make sure you get over there to fansharesports.com. Get signed up if you're not already. Use code USA. Now, let's get into the golf course. Pebble Beach Golf Links, located in Pebble Beach, California, Monterey Bay, California. It is a iconic link style, very much exposed seaside golf course. As you see behind me, a one-of-a-kind type of golf course. Many of the guys on tour cite this as one of their favorite tracks. Unique architecture, very challenging when it wants to be, when they set the course up to be. One of the finest tracks in the world, and an excellent venue for the U.S. Open for this year. The past few U.S. Opens have been very much bombers, paradises, very long golf courses. As always, U.S. Open, very difficult setup, very difficult rough. They try to protect par as best they can. But this course is, given that it's an older style golf course, and it's not one that's really able to be lengthened like most U.S. venues have been in the recent memory. This one is one of the shortest courses that you're ever going to see at a major outside of a link style Open Championship. And this course is very linksy in nature as well, but just over 7,000 yards, and I say just over, a shade over 7,000 yards, and a really interesting grouping of hole lengths as we get into it. It will play as a par 71. Unique thing about this golf course is it's played as a Pro-Am, as 1/3 of the course is on a Pro-Am every single year. So we've got some interesting course history angles to look at, but make no mistake about it, this course will play much different this week than it does in a year-to-year basis during the Pro-Am. So tough to lend a ton of course history weight to that, but I do have some things for you guys to look at, as well as my model that we're going to dig into. But you get the gist of it behind me. There is peril everywhere around this track, a lot of elevation change, and with the exposed nature of this golf course, wind and weather almost always play a factor. and the eventual victor. You definitely have to work the ball both ways. It is the type of course where guys are not going to be hitting lots of drivers. Distance and maybe some of the strongest weapons of some of the world-class golfers in the field, Dustin, Brooks, Rory, those guys, JT. In a lot of cases, that firepower is kind of taken out of their hands with driver. They might only hit 6 or 7 drivers around this track each day. So it really is a pure ball striking track, very much an approach and putting type of event. Scrambling will, of course, be crucial. Greens are incredibly small here, some of the smallest on tour, and they are contoured. And the wind only exacerbates the ability to hit them. Expect the rough to be long. We've already seen numerous videos out there of various golfers, dropping balls into the rough. I suspect some of that rough is going to be trimmed by the time that we actually get to tee off Thursday. However, you can't really play this golf course from the rough. You really have to be in the fairway. And as you see, the designers of the course, they really kind of force you into clubs that you have to select off of the tee. Driver is just not an option on certain holes. You just run out of fairway. The fairways are segmented. There's some weird carries, some blind shots. Really a test of golf here at Pebble Beach. So very exciting track for us to hold a U.S. Open at, and I'm excited for the week in general. One of my favorite stops on tour, and glad to see that we're playing it not in a Pro-Am setting. Really looking forward to the guys getting 4 rounds on this track in tough conditions, and just interesting to see how the course setup is. Expect the fairways to be pretty fast. Expect the greens to be pretty fast compared to what we normally see annually at this track. And expect the rough to be up around the bunkers. Expect that they're going to trim the rough as it leads into fairway runoffs, as it leads into cliff edges. They're going to encourage golf balls to go off the edge. They're going to encourage golf balls to roll into fairway bunkers, and they're going to let the rough on the other side of them grow longer. Expect the rough to be high around the greens. There will be penalties for missing these greens. Scrambling will certainly come into play. But make no mistake about it, this is a pure ball strikers golf course. Your long irons need to be in play, and your wedges need to be in play. So you're going to see here in a minute, we got a nice combination of short holes and long holes, and really does come down to wedge play and long iron play at this track. Expect to see a lot of less than driver looks off of the tee. The stinger will likely be popular. This week as well, a lot of 2 irons and 3 irons off of the tee for guys, and hit that low stinger, very controlled, and it is a precision pick-apart style of golf course. If conditions are right, they're calm and the course is soft, you can see guys put together some really strong rounds. I don't think that's going to be the case this week. I think the course is going to be set up in a very tough but fair way, and it really is going to be different than maybe the last 2 or 3 U.S. Opens we've seen with regard to distance and how important distance off of the tee is. I really think that that is not going to be a factor this week. We're definitely going to be needing to focus on your more plotter type of golfers that avoid bogeys more than they try to attack birdie. So it'd be a lot of it will be interesting to see how the course is set up, and then again, definitely pay attention to the weather this week as we get closer to lock. Right now, things look pretty calm. Look like just a gentle breeze. Gentle breeze on the coast like this definitely affects golf balls. But look to see how conditions are shaping up as we get closer to it. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the scorecard. As I mentioned, a brutally tough golf course the last 2 times it was played as a U.S. Open. Generally speaking, plays under par annually at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and that's, of course, they're setting this course up for amateurs and to speed up rounds. So you would expect it to play under par. The last 2 times, 2000 and 2010, courses averaged 4 strokes over par. If they set this course up right, it will give the golfers absolutely everything that they can handle. Normally, annually it'll play during the Pro-Am, it'll play as par 72. For the majors here, it plays as a par 71. So they do take one of those par 5s away from you. And really what's unusual here at this track, it's even when they're not U.S. Opens, but specifically and especially when they have a U.S. Open here, is the par 5 14th plays over par. Very tough hole, right along the coast, tree right in the middle of the fairway, tough hole, and it is the type of setup where you only have 2 holes on the entire golf course that average under par as a group, and those are the 2 shorter par fives. That said, every other hole averages over par. And it, like I said, it is weather dependent, but we do have 2 instances of majors being played at this track, and as you can see, do not expect a lot of birdies. It is very much bogey avoidance and positioning that we're going to be looking for, but the birdies that are going to be made are likely to come on the less than 400-yard par 4s here. Again, like I said, distance off the tee is not going to be the most important factor. You have a nice spread of hole lengths, and your par 3s aren't even all that long here either. But they do challenge you with elevation and with wind and with, again, really small greens. So a high ball flight is both a good thing and a bad thing at Pebble Beach. High ball flight does allow you to access those really tight pins on these small greens. But it also does make your ball susceptible to the wind, should it be up. So wind, it always plays a factor here at Pebble Beach, and you do have to be able to judge that. You'll see here as we look into some of the players that there definitely is a skill set in playing the wind here. Brandt Snedeker comes to mind right off the top of my head as a guy that has won and placed well in both the U.S. Open setup as well as the Pro-Am setup here. So one thing I forgot to mention about this course is it is all POA. So expect bumpy greens, expect greens that'll change very much so from morning to afternoon as they dry out, as players, use them up and walk across them. Expect them to get bumpier in the afternoon than they are in the mornings, and expect to see a lot of good putts not made, and through no fault of the player, just through the bumpy nature of POA greens. So it is definitely a tough setup, and the greens will be a little bit faster than we normally see for the Pro-Am. So expect a very tough test on these tiny greens this week. As far as the rest of the course, like I said, it's a challenging golf course that plays over par and frequently affected by the weather. So make sure you're looking for ball strikers. Make sure you're looking for long iron players. Make sure you're looking for good wedge players. Other than that, give a bump to POA putters. There definitely is an art to putting in POA. Guys that play well on the West Coast should have a good opportunity to put together some solid rounds, especially if they're in form. But don't expect tons of birdies. As you see here, there's really not a lot of places to score around Pebble. Your mid-length and short par 4s are going to be your best opportunity. 3 par 4s that are playing over 450 yards, 2 of them that are over 500 yards. All the players can handle this week. Those longer and mid-range par 4s get much more difficult should you find yourself missing the fairway this week. Expect the fairways to be running. Expect them to be tight. So really, guys are going to have to focus on making solid decisions off of the tee, finding the fairway so that they can have a shot at attacking these small greens. Again, not the kind of course you want to be putting 10, 12 feet for par. Very difficult, to compete in that way. So really look for tidy golfers. Look for folks that are guys that are able to keep it in play, and guys that are able to avoid bogeys. So let's take a look at my custom sheet this week. It's a bit different than what we normally see, and that's because it's a major, and it's sort of I kind of wanted to blend some information together for you guys. So first of all, I have this sorted by the combined average for both events, and that is the U.S. Open the last 5 years as well as Pebble Beach the last 5 years. If you sort that average out, you get some interesting results. Eddie Pepperell, of course, only because he has a one-time outlier in 2017 at the U.S. Open, but you can toss him out. You look at some of the rest of these guys. You look at Brooks Koepka, obviously, back-to-back defending champion of the event here at the U.S. Open, but has played U.S. Opens really well throughout his career and has a singular appearance in 2015 with an 8th place at this track. So, despite using his prodigious length, Brooks is able to dial it back and compete on a golf course like this. Many of your big names elect to skip the Pro-Am because they're long rounds and things like that. So a lot of incomplete data on the Pro-Am side. I also went ahead and pulled information from 2010 so we can get an idea of what this course looked like and who played well there. But there's very few people that have played in 2010 that are also competing here, even less that have played both times out. So it is what it is with regard to the type of information we have. But one of the things, U.S. Opens all tend to be set up very similarly. They're all very tough, plus par events. The U.S. Open protects par as best it can. So when you sort just by the average finish by event the last 5 years, Xander Schauffele, Brooks Koepka, Tommy Fleetwood, we already talked about Eddie Pepperell, a bit of an outlier there. Dustin Johnson, Louis, Brendan Grace, Aaron Badley, Kevin Na, all players. You got your Brooks and your Dustins there, but the rest of those folks, are all world class ball strikers. Not really the longest hitters on tour, but definitely world class ball strikers that find a way to compete in the toughest tournament, that they're going to see every year. So expect plus par conditions, expect guys to have to grind and fight for all 4 days, and you really need to have consistency to do that. Xander Schauffele, big value at $8,700 given his U.S. Open track record and what he's shown in majors. Has played this course one time in 2016, placed in 66th. Again, I don't lend a whole lot of credit to what Pebble is like, without the U.S. Open setup, but at least Xander has seen the course once before. Expect him to continue with putting together a real solid major record here. So the other thing I wanted to sort by and show you guys is the average points. So this is average DK points over the last 5 U.S. Opens. No surprise, Brooks Koepka at the top. Then you have as you go down, this ties pretty close to their average finish place. But some of these guys, Kevin Na, not the strongest finishes in U.S. Opens, has missed a couple of years, but in the top 10 in highest DK points scored. And again, we are looking for DK points. You don't have to have the perfect lineup, but we are looking for DraftKings points scored in tough conditions on courses that are U.S. Open setups. And Kevin Na, despite not being highly ranked in the model, in good form, and an interesting play on a course that does not require driving distance, and has performed well with regard to DraftKings points in the last 5 U.S. Opens. Some of the other players are, kind of people you'd expect. Brendan Grace always seems to step up in U.S. Open style courses, and a lot of that has to do with his ability to just keep things in play, keep the course in front of him. And again, a player that knows how to play in the wind, but really is, the model doesn't like him, hasn't been in the greatest form lately, but does have experience at this track. So Brendan Grace could be an interesting low-owned guy at the 7,200 mark. Hideki Matsuyama, a guy that you would expect to perform well in a U.S. Open type setup, premier world ball striker, and if he can ever get his putter going at any one of these events, he's certainly a threat to compete. Does not have any history at Pebble with regard to previous U.S. Opens or the Pro-Am. A bit concerning there for him. Jim Furyk, very much the type of course Jim Furyk can compete on. Model actually likes him at number 8, and also finds a way to score DraftKings points in U.S. Open type setups. So again, all these players that I'm sorting by right now are just, your top 20 players with regard to DraftKings points scored in the U.S. Open setup. And, no surprise, most of these golfers are great ball strikers and or guys that are big game hunters, show up in majors. Shane Lowry, one of those types of players that doesn't really show up too much all throughout the year, but tends to show up when it matters in big games, starting to get his game together at the right time. Brandt Snedeker, great course history here for Brandt Snedeker, both U.S. Open here at this track, in previous U.S. Opens, as well as being a multi-time winner here of the Pro-Am event. Brandt Snedeker, likely a popular option this week at 7,500. I know I will have some shares of him. Matt Kuchar, again, nice and tidy golfer. Model likes him at 12, and there's no reason that they shouldn't. So, moving down, let's sort by the model rank, and my model every week is done by hole length, average hole length, and their performance on that, what percentage of holes on that length fit the golf course. So no surprise, Dustin Johnson, great course history here, great track record at the U.S. Opens, tailor-made game for this type of setup, and did place 8th here in 2010. Dustin Johnson coming in ranked number 1 in my model. Justin Thomas, $9,300. Not any history here previously at Pebble, but has shown well in the majors, has certainly shown well in the U.S. Open setups. Rory McIlroy currently destroying the Canadian Open. mixed bag for Rory in U.S. Opens as well as at Pebble. Rory tends to excel on soft and, courses where his driver and his prodigious length off the tee can sort of carry him, and his long irons, can kind of put the field away. Certainly will need the long irons this week. Not sure if I'm a huge fan of Rory going back to back. Carlos Ortiz is a bit of an outlier with regard to the model. You can disregard him. Adam Scott, Justin Rose, Patrick Cantlay, Jim Furyk, Gary Woodland, Brooks Koepka, Tommy Fleetwood, Kuchar, Woods, all premier ball strikers. All have the ability to put together 4 solid days in a major setup on a tough golf course. Very much agree with the model here in the mid-range. Bit concerned to see Thomas Pieters this high in the model on a course like Pebble. You can't really use his length. Long irons are there for sure, but his mercurial nature certainly gives me pause. Siwoo Kim is a really interesting guy to me at $7,100 this week with regard to his Pebble record, where he does have a 4th place finish at Pebble and has put together a decent showing at a U.S. Open previously. So always tough to pin where Kim is going to go off, but interested to see what he does this week. Scrolling down, Jason Day, last couple of years struggled with the back problems and whatnot at the U.S. Open, but excellent track record at Pebble. Very good POA putter, can get up and down from anywhere, and don't see any reason why folks should stay away from a $9,100 Jason Day that's likely going to be, not as highly owned as he probably should. John Rahm has shown well on the West Coast, does have a victory on the West Coast, does like the POA. Current form very, very far off, though it seems like. Really struggled at Colonial this year. Webb Simpson seems to be coming into form. Webb definitely has the type of game that you would think would succeed at a Pebble Beach. Only has one appearance here a couple of years back, missed cut at the Pro-Am. Again, don't lend a whole lot of credit to that. It's a Pro-Am, very different environment. And Webb has played well at U.S. Opens before, certainly does not need to be concerned about his length at a course like this, and striking the ball exceptionally well currently is Webb. So definitely think Webb deserves some consideration this week, ranked 32 in my model. Graham McDowell, just talked about him, former winner here in a U.S. Open setup in 2010. Graham seems to always play well at the shorter coastal tracks, and that's what we've got here with Pebble. So you scroll down the list, and I tend to agree with my model for the most part this week. Daniel Berger is interesting to me. We haven't seen much of him. Not entirely sure he's 100% healthy, but very much a low-owned, high-upside golfer on a course like Pebble. Berger, while he is not the best POA putter around, definitely prefers his Bermuda, being a Florida guy, but Berger would seem to set up well at an event like this, where he doesn't have to worry about trying to keep up off of the tee. Can contend on the grinded out style of play, especially with the par 4s. That's kind of where his bread and butter is. Berger would make for a very interesting, extremely low owned, potentially high upside type of guy in a low scoring U.S. Open type environment. Brandt Snedeker is another guy that I expect to be pretty highly owned. We looked at his course history here, both at U.S. Opens, and a U.S. Open here, and as a previous winner of this event. Expect Brandt at $7,500 to be a pretty popular option by the time the week goes by. Going to get a lot of buzz this week, I feel like. Jordan Spieth, one of the model does not really like where Jordan's at right now, despite having some victories here as at the Pro-Am, as well as having won a U.S. Open before. I worry about his accuracy off of the tee this week. I think that could get him in a bit of trouble. But again, it is a less than driver course. Spieth might be able to manage his way around and put together a real strong week. Model doesn't really agree or like him all that much. Last thing I want to do is just sort by the event average with U.S. Opens one more time, and just take a look at the types of games that tend to succeed. And you look at Xander. Xander's maybe biggest strength is just incredible ball striking and confidence with the putter. Same thing with Brooks. Brooks adds that extra dimension with his length. Tommy Fleetwood, it seems like a course that Tommy should go well at. Good wind player, great long irons, and used to the links, coastal types of tracks. So look for Tommy to be a fairly popular option there. Model likes him, ranked number 10th. Already talked about Dustin Johnson, Jim Furyk, Brandt. I will definitely have some shares of Brandt. Interested to see where Tony Finau shakes out this week. $8,400 price tag, pretty good. Has played decent in some of the pro-ams here, and has certainly played well in the U.S. Opens the last year, as well as just the other majors. Have really become very consistent with his game in majors. So interested to see how Tony Finau's ownership shakes out at $8,400 this week. But with that, guys, I will sort it back by the model. I'll show you what my ranks are for the week based on my model. Again, Carlos Ortiz an outlier. You can toss that out. But everything else, I think the model's pretty well in line this week. I like where it's come out, and I'll be utilizing it for my player pool selection. Again, make sure if you're not a Fanshare Pro member, go over to fansharesports.com. Use code USA for 50% off your pro membership. Big things happening over at Fanshare Sports. Follow me on Twitter at DFSJimmy. Make sure you hit the like button. Best of luck in the third major of the year. We will see you guys next week.